Conference. We're going to build the best football program in the SEC Conference.
You have now arrived at Stadium in Gale.
The kick, it's been blocked again! How about it? It's been blocked again! It's going to heat one deep down the field. It's going to be to the goal line. It's going to be gone! It's a touchdown! And the Gators have won the game! Tyree Cleveland! How about it? I can't believe what I just saw! Dropping back to throw. Thompson fires the ball over the middle. It's Dory! It's Dory! Got a touchdown! Dory got a touchdown! Oh, man! Dory's got a touchdown!
Ahmad Black, in his final game as a Gator, takes it all the way home and sends Urban out the winner.
You have now arrived at Stadium in Gale.
Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Stadium and Gale. It's your favorite Uncle Silk.
It's Dan.
And Delatorre.
Same corner, same time. We back at it, man.
We are.
Favorite podcast is flagship. How you
We
feeling,
are.
man?
We are. You'll notice my decor, if you're watching on YouTube, is a little bit different out here in Denver, Colorado. What a place. Having a great time.
You having a great time?
Having a great time.
I can see the vibes. I'm not gonna ask too many questions.
Yeah.
but
No,
I see you having a good time out there. I can feel the ambiance from here.
the ambiance is
Treat
here.
yourself.
I'm treating myself.
Treat
I'm
yourself.
dialed in, Silk. I flew out here Saturday, and I flew next to quite possibly the worst passenger inadvertently possible. So fly Southwest, where everybody flies first class. Have my exit row seat.
Wait.
Everybody's in first class.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in an exit row.
I already don't
And-
like that airline.
They said that the flight was nearly full, but not completely full. Right. So exit row, me, empty seat, very nice older lady at the window. The very last person on the plane, mind you, he walked by like 7 empty seats, and there's a whole cornucopia of seats behind me where he could sit.
I
He
like that
chooses
word.
to sit right in front of me. He
Good.
drags his bag over my lap. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I was like, "It's fine, whatever." He's like fussling with the straps of his bag for like 4 minutes, and he's like man spreading the whole time. So he's like pushed his leg up against mine. I'm like resituating myself. We're still at the gate here, right? And then he proceeds to like push his bag under and then not move his legs the entire time and plop both arms on the armrest. And buddy, if I don't tell you that this guy put in AirPods and just looked straight forward for the next 3.5 hours.
I don't think this story is going the way you think it is. This guy, this is like dogs in the
took
wild.
over. Yeah.
This is dogs in the wild. Not only were you the beta dog in this pack, I think he peed on you.
Whoa,
Wow.
he
Wow.
marked his territory.
Wow.
This guy marked his territory. He peed all over that row and
That's
just let
crazy.
you know, hey, by the way, this is my row. You're welcome to sit here, but
Yeah.
this is how things are going.
Everybody's first
I
class.
really
though.
thought about that.
Yeah, that's a tough scene for you, Dan.
It was a tough scene.
That's a tough scene.
Looking at the comments here, please make sure that you like and subscribe here on YouTube.
It's free.
The Alpha said that Dan had a shareholder conference call. Nope, still haven't had it. We're still waiting
No.
on amended Q2 and Q3 results. Still waiting on year-end reports. We're almost halfway into Q2 of the following year, so still waiting on that. See, he's still
Unfortunate.
trolling on the internet. So
This segment not sponsored by Life Wallet.
no, it sure isn't. But vibes are great out here in Denver.
How many buttons you got on button right there, bro?
4.
Listen, buddy, he's on vacation. This is a
You're in
one
Miami
button,
or Denver?
This
Like,
is a
what's going
one
on?
button vacation.
Yeah, I see. You really feeling the vibes. How was your weekend, Nick?
It's good. Had baseball, but that was away. So did a little dog park. Came to a realization this weekend. As I get closer to my jersey ceremony, put my single jersey up in the rafters, Hall of Fame career.
Where?
Pat on my back. Well, as I get married, obviously
Oh,
not anymore.
gotcha.
So
I
my
thought you were
single
talking
jersey.
baseball. Gotcha.
No. Retiring the jersey. Have like 3 or 4 friends that are with child right now, and just realized like super washed coming soon. My fiance is in her, not going to tell her age, but I'm 34. So like, I feel like the kid clock is ticking.
Yeah, clock's ticking, man.
Just realized that. So like, super washed real soon.
Yeah.
If not already.
You're almost there.
Time to get rid of the condoms, Nick.
Yep.
Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. Thanks for listening to the pod.
This is a family show.
Yeah. When you consummate your marriage for the first time.
Yes, of course.
Time to start practicing and get to go. And the world needs more little Delatorias walking around.
Oh,
that's a fact. I don't know if we do, but we'll try.
Got to add some balance to the world. More pessimistic people.
New Leaf Nick.
Yeah, I like it.
New Leaf Nick. So, how was your weekend?
Just same old, man. Nothing new. It was Sunfest, so I contemplated hitting Sunfest, but couldn't find myself to do it. So I hung out with the son. We went to track Saturday morning, and then I had a barbecue for him and his friends at the park. So a lot of the guys he hang out with, go to school with. School year's winding down, so I just cooked for them. Shit my pops used to do for me, man. So I just figured I'd get into my wash bag like Nick is talking and just grill for those guys for absolutely no reason. So that was my weekend in a nutshell.
I can't wait to hear stories about Nick at the baseball park in about 12 years with little Delatorre, talking about Capri Suns and orange slices and grilling up some hamburgers.
So my dad, bless him, never played baseball, was a football guy. Just learned baseball, was my baseball. Coached me in all my sports all the way up till high school. I can't even play like co-ed softball. I'm too competitive. I can't imagine having the patience to coach like 5-year-old T-ball. I think the parents would like get me up out of there. It would be like,
I can see it.
Yeah, I just don't think I have the patience for other people's children at baseball, T-ball, soccer.
I think the most thing you're gonna need patience for is actually the daddy ball. I think like you're gonna be okay. You'll be fine. The kid's gonna be fine. The daddy ball is the toughest thing to deal with when you're dealing with Pop Warner low league sports.
My dad bucked that. He was the hardest on me because there was so much of that. Right. And I'd look at him and be like, "Hey man, why don't you chill? Why don't you chill out? Why don't you go yell at him? Why don't you go yell at the right fielder who let 3 balls go between his legs?" I'm killing it at shortstop. I'm doing well over here.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to my dad. He was a college baseball player, and I played hockey, as we all know. He coached one season of hockey.
Somebody kicked that when it fell from the tree.
I appreciate my dad so much for doing that because it's a pretty foreign sport, especially coming down to South Florida. My dad never played. It's obviously very different. So shout out to him, but he was more involved in my brother's baseball career and coaching him. And I never really had to deal with that, but I did have to deal with some teams where the kid either got preferential treatment or the dad was an absolute dickhead to their kid. So, there's really no in between, there's no fair, right? Well, let's get on to the show, boys. Do want to highlight a few comments here. Michael Maples, appreciate your support all the time. He said, y'all like, share, etc. It's the only thing that costs less than a wife wallet share. Love that.
Those are facts.
That's facts of life, bro.
And 4 buttons down and a plant in his face. Yeah, staying at Airbnb here in the low-high area. Didn't get to choose the decor. There's a couple trap doors that have my buddy Paul and his wife, who I'm hanging out with here, a little bit concerned. So if you don't hear from me, you know what happened. A little barbarian situation. But yeah, so here we are. Boys, want to give a quick shout out to our friend Alan Horn with State Farm Insurance. If you are in Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, or Alabama, give Alan a call or visit his website, alanhorninsurance.com, 706-692-2888. Any insurance that you might want, auto, life, RV, renters, life, business insurance, whatever it might be, give him a call. Again, 706-692-2888 or alanhorninsurance.com. Before we get into the show, obviously there's some transfer and some recruiting conversation that we're going to have. We're also going to welcome Nick's colleague, Keith Niebuhr, to the show from On3. But want to talk a little bit about the Sarasota Gator Club meeting that I went to and Billy Napier spoke at last Wednesday. First off, appreciate Rick and the PR team over there that helped me get media access. Great to see. Keith was there, Jacob was there, a number of other folks were there. So it was great to see the contingent. Matt Baker was there, the contingent of Gator sports writers that were there. And shout out to Billy Napier, who spent, I don't know, about 15, 18 minutes with us before he went on stage.
Journalism, Dan.
Big J journalism. Have the video and everything wanted to share. Was told we can't do that. So it now lives on my phone. But a lot of very interesting things came out of there, including probably some, I guess, looking back an opportunity for improvement. But I think Billy Napier also shed some light on the transfer portal and about recruiting and about what that process looks like. And I know there's some quotes that hit the timeline that were, I wouldn't say 100% taken out of context, but probably could have used some context, or the way that the quote was written probably was not exactly the manner in which it was said. I know that there was a tweet that went somewhat viral amongst Gator Nation about Billy Napier talking about admissions. And they said that it could take Florida up to 4 weeks to get a player through admissions. And that's not what he said. What Billy Napier did say is that they can scout a guy for 4 weeks and then ultimately get to the point where they want to potentially bring that person on and then run into a snafu with admissions. So it's not Scott Strickland. It's not admissions. It's not a bunch of people working against the Florida football program to make sure that these transfers don't work. And he said that if you are a 4-5 year guy and you're not a graduate transfer, that it is probably going to be tough to get into the University of Florida. There might be some academic issues. There might be some major issue. There might be some other issue that they're dealing with that just doesn't make everybody a target for the University of Florida. So did want to bring some contextualization into that. And if you guys have any thoughts or anything else that came out of that meeting, we can certainly talk about it. And Keith was there, and we can talk a little bit more about it with him as well.
Yeah, I think obviously Billy Napier cannot speak about other teams' players, but I think this was, in my opinion, talking about Grayson McCall. Florida wanted a quarterback. I think they would have liked Michael Pratt from Tulane. Never went in the transfer portal. Tulane had a historic season for them. Grayson McCall did go to the transfer portal. Took a visit to Auburn, I believe. Wasn't going to be able to get into Auburn. Once that became clear, I was like, well, he ain't getting into Florida. He didn't get into Auburn. You're not getting into Florida. Things change once you have college credits. Zach Albaverdi was talking to RJ Moten at the airport last week after his visit, and he's losing credits from Michigan, which is a great university, losing credits towards his degree, and is going to be coming to Florida anyway. So it's not that Florida's too hard to get into, which it is very hard to get into. And it's not that admissions was just like throwing around paperwork and putting it off. The process that Billy Napier, one that I've disagreed with in this small two-week window, because I think it's speed dating. The process that Billy Napier and his staff take, I don't think is built for that 2-week period, but they're not coming off of it. They're going to scout, evaluate, and do their process with players. And that is what I think he was talking about when he said we scouted and evaluated and recruited somebody for 4 weeks and then found out that he wasn't going to be able to get into school. I don't think you do the transcript first and then start the evaluations. Mm-hmm. I think it just didn't work out.
We do have Keith waiting in the waiting room, so we'll bring him on in a second. There was another thing, and we've talked about it on this show about Florida not having visits until after that spring period closed. And, obviously there was the transfer from San Diego State that, visited Oklahoma, ultimately commits to Ohio State before he makes it on campus to UF. And Billy Napier did say right? And you have to take him at his word that Florida would bring transfers on and bring them in early before that transfer portal window closed. And they admitted they just didn't get it done, right? Whether it was out recruited or whatever it might have been. But he did say that Florida would bring players in before that transfer portal period closed. They just missed on this one.
Yeah, he's going to say certain things in public, but it's going to depend on positions, in my opinion, right? Because if you bring the wrong guy on campus, you're trying to host a guy, a guy that's mature in age, an older guy, and you also have guys on your roster that you got to keep. So he said that, but you still got to be somewhat strategic with what you bring on campus if you're trying to manage your roster and keep guys from entering and exiting your depth chart.
Yeah, and then
which was the thing too. I'm sorry, which was the thing at safety. There was a lot of smoke about Kamari Wilson maybe entering the portal. A lot of message board, Twitter talk about that. And you see the first person we had on campus once the portal was closed is a safety.
Yeah. Well, let's bring Keith on. Before we do that, let's give our shout out to our friends over at Home Field Apparel. Go visit them, homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code Stadium and Gale. My buddy Paul, who I'm out here with, use that promo code, and he's rocking a Home Field Apparel Gator shirt around Denver right now. So again, go visit homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code Stadium and Gale at checkout. If you've already used it once, create a second email address and use it again. Again, homefieldapparel.com, promo code Stadium and Gale will get you 15% off of your order. And with that, we welcome Keith Niebuhr of On3, who's on the road right now. So Keith, it's great to have you, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I know two of you. I don't know the third one. And it's
his name's Dan.
No. I know who you are. Obviously, I know who you are, but we've never talked. You know.
Yeah.
So it's good to finally sort of meet you here. So appreciate you all having me on, and hopefully I'll get to meet you soon. Yeah, I'm on the road. I mean, I'm not going to exactly tell you where I'm at because I don't want to give too much away. But yeah, definitely going to be on the road a lot this. Well, I don't know if it's smart or not. But it's I don't know. But it's fun getting on the road because I feel like Rodney Dangerfield on the Carson show. He never had to set him up. He just came on and just started talking. But this is what reporting is: getting face to face with people. During the pandemic, I got real lazy and started doing so much stuff by the phone. And so much stuff gets lost when you're just doing DM, text, phone calls. So this is what the essence of recruiting reporting is: getting on the road, getting out there face to face with kids, their coaches, sometimes their mom and dad, Uncle Fred, whatever. And so that's what I'm doing this week, as well as last week. And I'll do it again next week.
Keith, let's start way back in, I think, you were UF class of 1947.
Whatever.
But just tell people
I look younger than you. Okay.
Well, Keith, I said, you know what? It's not the time to take shots. This is my show, Keith, and now you're taking shots at me. Just tell people a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your background with at Florida and in recruiting.
Yeah, I'll just say, going back to the 40s, my granddad was stationed at Camp Blanding. No, I'm going to say it, Camp Blanding up in Stark before he went off to fight in World War II. And he ended up living in Gainesville years later. He was from Vermont. My dad was from Miami, went to UF for a year, had to transfer to Miami because of financial situation with his family. It was actually cheaper for him to go to Miami. But even though he graduated from Miami, we moved to Gainesville in the late 70s, and all his money, when we weren't like big shot boosters, but he supported UF. Something has always gotten people in my family back to this area. We moved to Orlando, then we moved back to Gainesville. I went to college at UF. I moved away for jobs. Then I came back. I left, came back again, left. Now I'm back in Florida covering the Gators again. There's just something about Gainesville and something about the University of Florida that kind of pulls you back. And I knew all along this is where I wanted to kind of finish out my career. I spent the last 10 years covering Auburn recruiting, which is a blast. And I tell all the Florida fans, I say, look, you guys are tame, believe me. It's not as wild here as you think. Covering Auburn and Alabama, that's wild.
Well, sit tight, Keith.
Well, I that's what everybody tells me, but I just can't imagine. I mean, Florida never had Jetgate for starters, okay? But no, I mean, I've always followed Florida from afar. I follow what you guys did. I follow what Nick did. And so there's always that curiosity. And I knew someday I'd want to come back if the opportunity presented itself. And it's fun covering Florida. I mean, there's challenges, obviously, but you have that with every school. And the main thing is most of my friends and family have ties to the University of Florida. I'd like to see Florida do well for them. I want them to be happy. You know, I don't need my sister bitching when I'm over there at dinner about the baseball team. You know what I mean? But I mean, honestly, it was an honor and a privilege to cover Auburn. It really was. They treated me like family. I've never been treated that well somewhere before, but there's something about covering the place that you went and the fans that, you know, have ties to that school and everywhere you go around the state. You know, even when I wasn't in this state, whenever somebody would find out I went to UF, they'd always ask me about UF. It's just one of those schools that wherever you're at, there's a curiosity. I tell you what, I go to California a couple times a year just for little stupid golf junkets, and people, there's just a fascination with Florida. I think it dates back to Spurrier, quite frankly, but and so I always had it, even though I went there and left. But I think we've been doing this like 3-4 weeks now, and it's been fun. And I work with some great dudes, and the fans have been awesome. And I'm just kind of curious to see obviously football is the driving machine. Or drives the machine, excuse me. I'm just kind of curious to see where it all goes, you know, where they go.
Absolutely, Keith. We had the opportunity to hang out in Sarasota for a little bit last week. Talked to Billy Napier in media sessions, and what did you think? Obviously, you know, you're still getting your feet wet with covering Coach Napier. You coached a lot of different coaches over there at Auburn. What's your first impression from a reporting perspective, and then what was your thoughts of the 15 minutes we had with him?
Yeah, I was actually like 19 minutes. And honestly, I really like Billy. I'd met him previously before I started doing this, covering Florida. He's a super, super nice guy, but he has some long answers. And I have the attention span of a squirrel. You know what I mean? So it's hard for me not to just kind of lose interest during all that. But he had a lot of good things to say. He's just very, I guess my observations, and Silk, and Dan, I don't know how you guys feel, but he's very measured in every response. And I'd probably like to see him be less measured, but unless that's who he is, maybe that's just who he is. Maybe he's that guy. So. Sometimes I think a lot of these guys, and I'm still getting to know him. You guys know him better than I do. Some of these guys, you know, again, I was in school when Spurrier was a coach, and it was so off the cuff. Now, what people don't realize about Steve Spurrier, not everything he said was exciting or funny or whatever. He'd say 20 boring things, but he always had that kicker. You know what I mean? But Billy's very measured. I wouldn't say concise. I don't, no, not at all. But I kind of liked all the things he said. I mean, he was honest. Hey, look, there's things I wish they could have done as a program and a coach. We would have done differently with the portal. We're doing the best we can. We're trying to be fast without hurrying. Wasn't that the great John Wooden line? Be fast, but don't rush. And that's kind of how you have to look at the portal. And he was honest about that. And it's interesting. I'm still trying to really get a read. I've done 2 of those things with him now. One of them, I just happen to be the only media person there. I don't know. What was the main gist of your question again? I started rambling and already forgot.
Yeah, no, you took the Billy Napier route. No, I was just more curious about what you thought. If you had any takeaways other than kind of holistic, big Billy Napier takeaways about any quotes or anything that you took away from that 19 minutes that we had with him.
No, I don't think there was anything earth shattering. I think he said all the right things, quite frankly. You know, and then also I will say the observations off mic, very cordial with all of us, very friendly, you know, he thanks you for doing it. And it seems genuine. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he wants to do these things. I mean, who really does want to sit there and answer question after question? I wouldn't, but he's very polite, you know, and it's what I hear from recruits and their families too. He's just a good guy. He's a good dude. That doesn't guarantee you're going to win 12 games. It doesn't mean you're going to win 3 games. But as a person, he seems like a quality person. And look, the effort's being put in. We know that. But I think I liked when he did admit that there were things that it wasn't a perfect. The recruiting out of the portal wasn't perfect. There was no magic. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. It's not an exact science. You're trying to get information. You're hoping. He said you're hoping you hear that a guy may be going in the portal, so you're prepared when it happens. but that doesn't always work. He seemed like he's very honest and upfront about the challenges of the portal.
Yeah.
And I get it. I mean, I know you guys do too. I just heard you talking about it. And Silk made a great point. You got to worry about the guys on your team. Sometimes you could maybe get a receiver that's better, and I'm going off track here, a receiver that's better than anything you got. But if you bring him in, does that ruin that room?
Mm-hmm.
Which then brings the room down. And so there's all these things you have to judge. And I think that's what Billy was telling us, that, there's a lot of factors in play here. Just when you think you've got somebody and you like them and you got it all figured out, then a week later when his transcript finally shows up, it's crap and you can't do anything with it.
Right.
And so I think that was kind of thing. He was just kind of trying to illustrate the challenges of the portal. I think we're all fans, right? Us as fans, we think, all right, go get this guy. You need help at this position. There's 5 of them sitting out there. Why aren't you going out and getting them? And every school's got unique challenges. Some schools can bring in certain guys. Some schools can't. You got to worry about the egos in the room. Now, they've talked extensively. I've been following all the Gator stuff from before I got there about changing the culture, right? And I had heard from other coaches that left that the culture was not great, okay? The question is, how do you quantify culture, right? But if they have built this great culture, you might say as a fan, well, if the culture's so great, why would you worry about people being upset and leaving when new guys come in? So I get that. On the other hand, everybody wants to play. And these are alpha male kids, and they all think they're ready. They all think it's their turn. So there are many, many challenges of bringing in guys. You've got to have a room that's accepting of the fact that you're trying to improve the room, not push them out of a spot, right? So there's an enormous weight of responsibility and an enormous amount of challenges that a staff has to go to try to better themselves. Now, in year one, like we're seeing it in the old school I covered, Auburn, they're in survival mode. They're having to take a transfer a day right now. They had 3 terrible recruiting classes in a row. So that's year one. By year 2, where Florida's at now, you shouldn't have to take as many people. You brought a bunch of good young guys in the last class and maybe some from the year before. So you're building. But will you get to coach those guys if you don't win now? You're trying to balance winning now versus, am I going to get to coach DJ Lagway? So there's so many things that he's got to deal with. It's got to be somewhat overwhelming at times, I would think, even with the staff of 600 people or however many they have there.
Right. And they mentioned, obviously, RJ Moten had committed that day. I think that there's plans to keep Khalil Jackson, wide receiver, on. Although he didn't confirm, he basically confirmed that of the walk-ons, he's probably the only one that's guaranteed a spot, which I think leaves Florida with maybe 3 potential players in the transfer portal. Wondering about, Adam Mihalik, obviously the kicker. There's a couple other players that they had that were on scholarship last year that are still on the team that could be potentials as well. Florida has 1 right now. We had 1 visit this past weekend. We'll get in that in a few minutes here. But that's probably where, Florida's going to be in that 2, maybe 3 spot max for transfer portal players.
Well, the 85 number is fake until fall camp starts. You could have 285 guys on scholarship right now, and then you just got to whittle it down to the 85. Florida never really played that game until Billy Napier got here. Learned from the best, Nick Grayshirt Saban, so Florida's not afraid to do that. So, like, when you say 3, yeah, sure, but do you need 2 kickers on scholarship? Certainly not. A walk-on defensive lineman who, it's great that you're on scholarship. Your spring and your summer classes were free. That's awesome. But when it comes down to brass tacks, and you get to the fall, I don't think that some of the guys who are on scholarship in the spring and the fall will be on scholarship, or spring and summer will be on scholarship in the fall.
Right.
Can I say something? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Keith. Go ahead.
Well, I know y'all talked extensively about quarterback stuff the last several weeks, but even that presents itself with a big challenge, because a guy that has 1 year left, let's say, well, those guys, I mean, if they were really good, they'd probably be off on the way to the NFL most of the time. And if they have 2 years left, well, does that scare away? Do you run the risk of scaring away DJ Lagway? And if they have 2 years left, what if they're really good that first year and then they leave and then you're stuck right back where you just were next year and you're having to bring in another 1 year guy? It's so tricky right now. So I'm still curious. We keep hearing through the grapevine that that they had that they were still looking if the opportunity presented itself, a quarterback. But I mean, at this point, maybe somebody that graduates in the summer, a kid that graduates early. I don't know. I don't know what the options are. I don't know what you guys are hearing, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Silk, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
No problem, man. Keith, I just wanted to ask you about just the recruiting and with this staff and the climate of the country. We're winning some battles that Dan Mullen lost to Georgia and Alabama. So we're getting some victories. The star average and the quality of blue chippers is there. How far away are we to closing that gap with Georgia? And what are you hearing about the buzz of this cycle as well? Like, I know it's heating up this summer.
It's been positive. I'll just give you an example. I was at IMG last week down in Bradenton. And now the last few times I'd been there talking to kids that Auburn was after, but there does seem to be more buzz about Florida right now. They do seem to be making progress with guys. Now, 5-star defensive lineman David Stone, he's from Oklahoma. Sooners are favored, but we hear that their NIL could be in play there, and that might open the door for some other schools. That seems like a little bit of a long shot, but he keeps visiting. Guy keeps visiting. You hope for the best. Jordan Seaton's I think. That's right. Jordan Seaton's a big-time offensive tackle, and, he keeps visiting. He was there over the weekend. He told me last week they're going to probably get or almost certainly get an official visit. So they're making progress at those schools. I never look at this. Well, I do look at the star rating, but more important than that, and I will tell you, and I'm a big Gus Malzahn guy. He's been great to me through the years, but his last few years at Auburn, and there's a point here, the star rating stayed high. But what we noticed, Silk, with who were they beating to land guys? So when Gus first got to Auburn, they beat out Bama and Georgia for Montravius Adams. They beat out LSU and Georgia for Big Cat Bryant. They beat out everybody for Carl Lawson. What's the other big one? Derek Brown. Bama was 2. That guy ended up being like the number 6 pick in the draft. Bama was 2. Georgia was 3. Tennessee. So they were beating out big guys. Kerryon Johnson, you beat out Bama. Legit head-to-head battle. By the end of Gus's tenure, you weren't winning those battles anymore. You had Tank Bigsby, but Georgia slow played Tank Bigsby. That's how he ended up at Auburn. You were beating out, I don't want to knock schools, but you were beating out NC State as opposed to beating out the Georgias of the world. So that's what we've seen with Florida in recent years. More low-hanging fruit pickups, you know what I mean? Now you're seeing some wins. Clemson and Southern Cal would have taken DJ Lagway in a heartbeat, right? And a lot of people. Phil Sameen, another big-time recruit. They're winning more of those battles. So to me, more important than star rating is who did you beat? So that the running back from Mississippi, Cameron Daniels?
Canan
Daniels. So you beat out Mississippi State. So people may say, well, big deal. Well, he lives 30 minutes from Mississippi State. And it is hard to get the studs out of that state.
That's a big thing, too, that you need to point out, Keith, is that the guys from Mississippi, it's hard to get them out of Mississippi.
Yeah. Beating Mississippi State from a kid from West Point is like beating Alabama for a kid from Birmingham, okay? Yeah. Kelby Collins, big win. And that's given. So, like, Kadarius Toney seems like a big win because he produced, but they didn't. Bama and Alabama weren't really, or Bama and Auburn weren't really, that was kind of like Florida didn't beat them, really. They just got them. But you're starting to see more of those big wins again. Now, we haven't seen too many against Georgia. That's the next step. It's got to be a step thing. It really does. I mean, you'd love for it to not be, but the reality of it is it is.
And we've said that on this show, too, is that Kirby Smart didn't come in right away and do this. He's had 5, 6, 7 years of building number 1, top 3 classes to get to where they're rolling in 5 stars and they're 3 deep.
Look, Billy, not only does Billy Gonzalez know how to recruit, he knows what he's looking for. The running backs coach seems to be on point. The 2 offensive line system, kids are telling us it's resonating with them. Sean Spencer, I met him the other day. Incredibly personable, and I'm going to put something on the message board. I watched him just interacting with women at the front office at Orlando Jones High School. One of them was a Miami fan. One of them was an FSU fan. And he was just rolling with the punches. Well, that's the kind of guy that you want to get into a school. He's not going to be bothered by all that stuff. He's going to connect with people, whether they like Florida or not. He probably made Florida 2 fans that day just by the grace that he treated these ladies at the front office at Orlando Jones with. So you're seeing this. He knows how to recruit. the young defensive coordinator, Austin Armstrong. We don't know how he's going to be, but the early reviews are that he's connecting with people. And here's who he's really going to connect with. He's a young Southern guy from York, Alabama. He's going to connect with coaches, high school coaches across the Southeast. And those guys are your initial gatekeepers. So I feel, and then obviously Corey Raymond is, one of the all-time great DB coaches in the modern era of college football. So they're connecting with people. It's resonating. But again, at some point, people got to see wins, and then you put the two together, Silk, and then you can really take off. But they got to see wins. Look, I'm older than you guys, unfortunately, as Nick will point out 100 times. But the Florida logo.
You look younger though, bro.
Thank
You're
you.
Right.
The Florida logo is still. You got to see me walking. My back is hunched, but the Florida logo is still strong to us four and to people at all these Gator Club meetings we've been going to. But it's not as strong to other people right now. Right now, it's just a little temporary thing. This is what happens. So wins change that. Big name wins. And I don't mean just recruiting. I mean the games on Saturday, big name players. So it's, I always tell people, 10 years ago, Clemson wasn't the Clemson we know now. Somebody has to be the next Clemson. Somebody has to be the next Georgia. Why can't it be Florida? It could be. It could be someone else too. That's the reality. But there's going to be a next 2 or 3 great programs. It's out there for the taking. The blueprint's out there. NIL's creating some challenges, obviously, but I feel like Florida's getting a better handle on that. And now you've got, and obviously quarterback recruiting. If you don't recruit that position at a super high level or have a few, again, my old program, Auburn, a few misses in a row, then all of a sudden you can forget about winning more than 8 games. So all of that stuff has to be aligned. When you look at where Florida is right now, there is reason for optimism if they can survive this next season. I mean, I don't mean the coaching staff. I mean, just in general, if you go 4-8 or 5-7 or 6-6, can you keep that class together? Can you keep the positive energy? Can you keep the fan base happy? So again, there's a lot going on always at one time, but from a recruiting perspective, I'm hearing a lot of good things. They're in it with a lot of really good players. I can tell you that. I mean, they're not going to get them all, but you never do. But it looks like it's going to be a class solidly in the top 10, and you've got a 5-star quarterback. Looks like the O-line recruiting is going to be okay. We're waiting for some pickups. D-line recruiting, the history of Sean Spencer says he's going to get guys. So you rely on that. And I feel like it's going to be a solid top 10 class with an elite quarterback. So,
I'll take an easy way here. I mean, just like Jaden Rashad didn't work out, but 3 classes in a row, Billy Napier has gotten an elite quarterback to say yes to him. And DJ Lagway picked Florida over Lincoln Riley, who part of his recruiting pitch is first overall picks at quarterback, Heisman's at quarterback, national championship potential, college football playoff. Billy Napier's over here like, yeah, we did go 6-7. Please come play for us and help us not do that again. So like these are major recruiting battles, and I've been trying to rack my brain. I don't remember the last time Florida had a quarterback like DJ Lagway of his caliber committed this early in a cycle and then recruiting the way that DJ is. And I think that's the difference, is that you're building, but that doesn't help you this year. It might not even help you in 2024.
Well, you made a good point in there about one thing. It's kind of a leap of faith for a lot of these kids. You can sell your vision year 1, year 2. Then you got to start winning. Then all of a sudden it's hard to sell a vision if you're not producing on the field. Look, they weren't left with a beautiful situation, but there was some talent. We learned that watching the draft. Now they say they've changed the culture. They're getting their kinds of guys in there. Again, the next step is to start producing some wins, and we'll see what happens. But again, I'm getting good vibes across the state. I mean, look, I think Florida State's recruiting well in state this year too. I know nobody wants to hear that, but they had a few years to build those relationships. And so Florida was playing catch up from the relationship building standpoint. But I mean, again, positive stuff out there. You just got to keep building on it and building on it and building on it. And, if they don't win this year, it'd be what would it be? They're working on 2 straight losing seasons, right? And that's unfathomable to me. But the schedule's not easy. So you just gotta start winning some of those games, man. At some point it's a wins-oriented business, results-oriented business. And so But yeah, we don't see them going after the low hanging fruit in recruiting much like we were, Silk. I think, you know what I mean. I mean, I don't want to knock too many people, but it seemed like there were a few coaches over the last, let's say, half dozen years at Florida, and I was just following from afar, and you're like, where they were just taking one 3-star after the other. Now, that doesn't mean those guys can't play. That doesn't mean you didn't do a great evaluation, but over 20 guys, are you going to out evaluate Nick Saban's staff, Kirby Smart staff? I mean, at some point, so you're fishing from the same pond with the other big boys, right?
For sure.
You know. And we don't see that as much anymore. Now we're seeing some of the bigger battles. They're getting in there and mixing up. I mean, Billy Gonzalez ain't afraid to get in there and mix it up with the other big guys. I can tell you that. Neither's Corey Raymond. Neither's Rob Sale. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, mostly I'm impressed with the wide receiver recruiting. I think as a fan, one thing that made me fall in love with Florida football was Spurrier, Funny Gun, explosive wide receiver, Riedel, Ike, Quez. You know, and then you go to Percy Harvin, Caldwell, explosive guys, man, that could take the lid off. And those were battles we won for elite guys. And we've had some guys with McElwain and Muschamp and all those guys, but it was more of, hey, go check their film. They could be developed later type situation. So to see the rooms that Billy Napier, I know he's a previous wide receiver guy. That's where he made his name out there at Bama recruit in the recruiting world. So to see him and Billy in two cycles, back-to-back cycles, start to load up at those positions, I think receiver is underrated when you look at teams being able to come on the scene. Like wide receivers could play early. You could get an explosive guy out of high school, you put him out wide, and he could get explosive. I got high expectations for Eugene Wilson and Andy Jean and all those guys. So I'm super excited about the level of the wide receiver room, and the DB room is coming back as well because that got a little down with the last regime. So just seeing the star level and the quality of players getting back to where University of Florida we used to be, that makes me feel a lot better more than anything.
Well, Billy Gonzalez, I'm doing all the talking here, but Billy Gonzalez at this point in his career knows what he's looking for. A 30-year-old assistant may not entirely know what they're looking for always. Some do, some don't. He knows what he's looking for. A lot of Spurrier's best receivers, most productive receivers, weren't his highest rated guys. I love Jaquez. I know you do too. I ran into him last week, and his recruitment actually came down to Florida, Alabama, and I think Mississippi State. And Alabama wasn't the Alabama then that it is now. They were selling him on the idea of being the next David Palmer. Who was another guy? Aubrey Hill out of Carroll City. I think he'd run, receiver in the wishbone offense down there.
Rest in peace.
Yes. I think he had like 15 catches his senior year in high school, but they saw a skill set. So I think, and then he ended up being Mr. Third Down at Florida. And I think Billy knows what he's looking for there. But you're right. I went to that spring game, and boy, the receiver room seemed to be a bit underwhelming for what we were used to the returning guys. Right.
This time last year, I was very critical of the receiver room and was dubbed Negative Nick. And then they played the games, and people thought I wasn't negative enough, I think, towards the end.
You called it the worst room ever, and I had to remind you of.
No, I said the worst room that I've covered. So in 10 years.
Did you cover the Wharton room?
Listen, Catch the Baby had a lot of potential. He just did most of his work at Midtown and less on the football field.
All right, boys. Keith, we're going to let you go. I know that you're on the road right now. Keith,
back on the road, Keith.
Yeah, let everybody know where they can follow you and give yourself some plugs.
I mean, just go to gatorsonline.com. On Twitter, it's on3Keith. But I'll answer questions, but we're just trying to get people to the site, basically. So for that, thank you for having me on because, we can use the publicity. Nick's been doing not a good enough job promoting the site here, I guess.
Yeah. Nick,
I can't believe y'all. I mean, this isn't UNICEF. Silk and DK, aren't you guys running a business? You got Nick on the show?
Yeah.
Business was too good. I had to bring it down.
That's IRS right. Yeah, we were flying too high.
Now, when Silk gets down to Tampa, he's going to come hang out with us.
Yeah, for sure.
100%.
Okay. Where do you live?
I'm in West Palm.
Okay.
South Florida. But I'm in Tampa.
I may be over there. I may be over in West Palm in the next couple of weeks. I'll try to get your info. Okay.
Tap in with me. I know you got to be coming to see these Carter Newman and Benjamin boys. Man.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to go by those schools at some point. I'm just maybe next week, but I'll hit you up. Okay.
All right, man.
Keith, we'll see you out on the golf course, brother.
Y'all take care. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Drive safe.
See you, Keith.
Yep. Thanks.
Man was hyping CJ Wharton and Alvin Bailey. That was a beef we had that year.
First off, you were probably hyping Alvin Bailey.
Why is that probably, Nick?
There was hype for Alvin Bailey as a recruit.
I never understood the Alvin Bailey take. It's glad to see. I don't want to be right, but that was one that I just never really saw. All the Gator fans wanted him.
I've seen some possibilities if he was in the right offense and not with who we had at that time. He was a guy that played quarterback, could have went to the slot and did some things. He was shifty.
CJ Wharton could have been great.
He
was great. He was great at Midtown.
At Midtown, yeah,
he
Midtown
was a legend. Midtown legend.
He's a Rex Grossman at Midtown.
Yeah. Speaking of Midtown,
all right,
we got to pour one out for our friends at Grog. I know my friend Allie Gardner and the softball team, they were up there a lot. I know a lot of the football players made it up there too. But rest in peace. About 25 years in business. Mm-hmm. So beat the clock, just won't slap the same.
Everything's getting
salty and balls still there. But
salty balls, huh?
Salty and balls are still there.
How long you giving salty balls? Pause.
There's been
some rumors that have me hoping for longer than I originally thought.
Rumors and drama, but there's a new establishment coming. I don't want to give too much away. I think the three of us know new old establishment coming to Midtown. I think you'll see the boys there.
Man.
I think you'll see the boys there.
I'm wearing my good cologne, Nick. Bringing the Gucci out. Yeah, bro.
Okay.
A little bun, maybe a bun, number 9. They got to smell me when I enter the building, though.
That's true.
I
think they'll smell you. I think they'll smell. You mean from your cologne? I get it.
Yeah, either way.
Are you a one cologne guy? You used to like be a mad scientist back in like high school and like try to mix 2 different fragrances to make a unique one. No,
you can't go over the top. The last thing you want to do is like I did that one time. And the girl was like, "Oh my God, you smell too good!" Like, how many sprays did you spray? So you don't want to go over the top, man. You want to hit it a couple times and vibe. Keep a little travel bottle and in a bag or a pocket with you because you never know if it may wear off and you may run into some nice action that later. I'm like, yo, I want her to smell this Gucci. Go to the bathroom. Because the bathroom guy, if you're at the right establishment, he gonna tax you and wanted you to tip him.
Oh yes,
for a spray of his cologne. So travel.
I really struggle with bathroom attendants. We'll get back to the show here in a second. I have no problem.
I respect them, man. I respect them boys.
I respect the hell out of them. And I appreciate what they. I wish there was.
I
wish there was a self-service checkout line in a bathroom attendant situation. Right?
That's actually smart.
I appreciate you giving me a couple squirts of soap and giving me the paper towels and all that. I also have no problem doing that myself. I do appreciate that they create a level of accountability in the bathroom at the bar where we've all seen it. Guys aren't necessarily great at washing their hands. So I appreciate that level of accountability, but I do wish there was a self-service checkout in the bathroom.
Downtown Fort Lauderdale we had a little bar. Went there for the longest time. Never had cash. Sorry, man. Don't have cash. Appreciate that. 2-3 years going to the bar. The same attendant. He knows me. I'm like, sorry, man. Don't have cash. Boom. He whipped out that little plug, put it into his phone. I was like, my guy, this is a 50 spot for you. Like I've been coming here for years. We've been accruing a bill. I gave the guy $50. I was like, yo, that's a power move.
Money. Yeah.
Power move. You just pulled out the phone. You're like, yo, I got you. This is before, like Apple Pay and stuff like that. So you pulled out whatever that thing is, you plug it in and you swipe the card.
Yeah.
Bro, the bathroom attendant got paid that night.
There's a guy in Tampa that has a placard that's laminated and everything. If you don't have cash, that's fine. Apple Pay, Venmo, Zelle, whatever mode of payment that's out there, they take it. So no
excuse. Just like follow stock, not transferring.
Here's my thing with the bathroom guy. My thing with the bathroom guy is when they monopolize it, right? So I don't have the option to wash my hands because you got the only sink, you cornered it off, and you got the soap already out. So I'm obligated to pay you regardless because you like volunteered your services. It's like the people that would start wiping your windows. Like, bro, I didn't ask you to do that, so I appreciate it.
Bathroom capitalism, baby.
They have saved me with some breath mints, here and there, some cologne spray. So like when you're in a crunch, you appreciate the bathroom attendants. So I appreciate them boys.
I do. Speaking of appreciating the boys, want to give a shout out to our friends over at the Gatorverse, Gatorverse.io. If you are looking to support University of Florida student athletes, check no other spot than Gatorverse.io. Doing a lot of really great things. They had a fantastic gymnastics engagement that they did last year. Really helped a lot of the student athletes at the University of Florida working with the men's basketball program. Going to be working with a lot more, but please go check out Gatorverse.io and support your University of Florida athletes. Let's see. Nick, one of the topics of conversation that came up, and I am not allowed to talk specifically because it was a ticketed closed door event at the Gators club down there in Sarasota. But we're still on the topic of conversation of 9 games in the SEC versus 8 games. Do you have any thoughts or opinion on the matter?
I have many. Excuse me. I think the SEC is steeped in tradition. Florida and Georgia are going to play. They're going to play in Jacksonville. As much as I would like to do a 2 in Jacksonville, Athens, Gainesville rotation, think that would be really cool. If you're at Florida or at Georgia for 4 years, you get an opportunity to play in the swamp. You get an opportunity to play between the hedges, and you still get to go to Dan's favorite city in the entire universe. So I think that'd be cool. But you have these traditions. Auburn and Alabama, the state will secede from the union if the SEC tries to say that they can't play the Iron Bowl. You also have to have Alabama play Tennessee. They've played that over 100 times. That game has to happen. Auburn and Georgia have to play. The 8-game model with adding 2 teams is going to be a 7-1 model, which means you get 1 permanent opponent. So are you taking Tennessee off Auburn or off Alabama's schedule? Are you taking Auburn off Alabama's schedule? Are you taking Tennessee off of Florida's schedule? Or are you taking Georgia off of it? There's no more LSU games. So you're going to have riots in SEC fan bases with 8 games. Now, the other option is to go to a 9 game, and then you have a 6 and 3 permanent opponents, and then 6 rotating. That keeps the traditions. That also adds an SEC game. I think the SEC and the presidents and the athletic directors are going to go to Disney, say, hey, Mickey, we're playing a tougher schedule. We'd like some more of those Donald Duck bucks to do that. And Disney is going to say, hey, man, we're paying you $3 billion for the next 10 years to schedule your games. A little greedy. So I think the SEC will posture and say, we'll do 8. And you're going to get fire and brimstone from fan bases, which are going to say, what do you mean we're not playing Tennessee anymore? We're not playing Alabama anymore. We're not playing Auburn anymore. So I think the 8-game schedule, once they came out last year in the spring and said there's only 2 models, this model for the 8-game, a 7-1, and this model for a 9-game, a 6 and 3. To me, there was no other option. You can't get rid of these traditional rivalry games. So you're going to have to go to a 9-game schedule, and the SEC and the coaches and the athletic directors will say, we're going to stay at 8. We're going to stay at 8. Until they see what the fan bases say. But they're going to try to get more money out of Disney, who's giving them $3 billion. Starting in 2024, the SEC will get $300 million a year from ESPN, from Disney. They were getting $55 million a year from CBS. So you don't have a huge leg to stand on going to ask for more money, but I get the standpoint. Like, hey, we're giving you an extra SEC game. So, we didn't have this SEC game when we negotiated the contract. We need to renegotiate. But if I'm writing a $3 billion check, I don't really feel like renegotiating that for a higher number.
Good stuff there, Nick. I feel like with all of your similes and metaphors, you were prepared for that segment, and appreciate your thoughts. I know.
How dare you? That was Hove and Wayne in the booth. That was
one
off the
take,
top.
Jake.
One take, Jake.
That was one take. That was a freestyle.
I like it. Well, you did a fantastic job, Nick. That's why we pay you the big Donald Duck bucks here. I do think that Florida's position right now is more erring on the side of wanting 8 games over 9. Silk, you have any thoughts, or you just gonna kind of wait and see because we don't control it anyway?
Yeah, man, they better get these games right, or they'll have to go back to lockdowns. The real civil war gonna start. They take away these rivalry games. That's my take.
All right. Well, let's get on
Who,
to
if they stay at 8, who do you want as Florida's permanent opponent?
I'm not
Vanderbilt.
Unfortunately, I can't.
Well, no, maybe not right now.
Dan,
Jeez.
watch out. Careful there,
Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah,
No,
I've
give
really
Vanderbilt
backed
the
myself into a corner here.
There's no
Well,
corner.
yeah, I mean, it's not going to be.
keep
So
happening.
the other thing too,
I think it's going to be Georgia, right? I think if any permanent opponent exists, Florida Georgia is the most storied of those rivals, right?
You have to look into the contract too, because I mean, I guess you can probably Florida and Georgia could get out of the contract with the city of Jacksonville if the SEC is not going to have that. If the SEC is going to have change that, but to me, I can't imagine a season where Florida and Tennessee aren't playing.
Right.
We got a lot of low key like rivalries, man. Like LSU is a rivalry.
You're gonna lose the LSU game, like
right.
From talking to people, even if they do the 9-game schedule, LSU's out. It'll be Georgia, Tennessee, and I think Oklahoma will be.
I think I'm gonna get out there this year for that reason.
Permanent.
I gotta see Florida at LSU before they start dismantling things.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the first time, right? Florida used to have a very historic rivalry with Auburn that was lost. So I don't know. I don't necessarily love the 7-1, but I get it, right? Especially with Oklahoma and Texas, their regions agreed to it. They're absolutely coming in 2024. You have to add them in some, rhyme or fashion. What if you got rid of all of the rivalries? What if you had 8 games?
Let's get rid of the whole game, Dan.
What?
Just get rid of the whole game at that point.
What do you mean get rid of all the rivalries?
But if you got rid of the one permanent rivalry every year, and then every school has multiple rivalries, right? It's going to be tough to balance if you stick at 8. Obviously, if you go to 9, it's a little bit of a different situation. I think if they go to 9, I'm very curious if Florida continues on with Florida State every year. I think that they would, but there's that chance too, right? Where now you're going to be potentially losing the opportunity to have that home game that you might not otherwise have, or whatever it might be to be able to bring in a USF in, or who are we bringing in this year? I don't remember, Central Michigan, whoever it might be, but Florida also has locked themselves in. And this is why I'm not surprised that Florida's position is probably 8. You've already locked in games against Notre Dame. You've locked in games against Colorado. You've locked in games against Arizona State in the future for 1-1. So I'm very curious if Florida does go to a 9-game schedule, has FSU on there, that's 10. You go away to Arizona State. Now you have one for the fan base. If Florida's good, that's great because you get great football. But from a business perspective, certainly things you have to start thinking about.
No doubt.
Gosh, you just can't. They can't stay at 8.
I'm just telling you what I think their position is. We'll see. I don't think it's Florida's decision to control 100% on their own, but you start to factor in those things and then how that might affect other rivalries, right? But what I mean by getting rid of rivalries is not getting rid of rivalries as a whole. That's what makes college football, but Florida has Tennessee, LSU, Georgia, previously Auburn as considered rivals, right? You're going to be in a situation where you rotate them every few years, right? You don't lose the rivalry. You just lose that it's every year, and it might be 2 out of 3 years, right? Or 3 out of 5. Does that make the rivalry even bigger? Who knows?
Yeah. Try to tell fans of Auburn, Alabama, and Tennessee, like, hey, sorry, no Iron Bowl this year, but we'll get you back in 2027.
I don't have to tell them. That's the best part. Yeah. I don't work for the SEC. The only SEC
guard,
right now
bro.
I'm worried about. The only SEC, Nick, that I'm worried about right now is governing my retirement investment. All right, boys, we've got a couple commitments. Let me get a final ad read in just because of where we're at, and then we'll power through the end of the show here. Go visit alumnihall.com. Go visit them on Archer Road or on online there. Anything that you want, Gators, polos, golf apparel, little trinkets, accessories around your house, the latest and greatest in all of the major brands that provide Florida Gator sponsored wear. So go visit them, alumnihall.com, or go visit them on Archer Road in beautiful Gainesville, Florida. Last week on Monday, not long after we recorded, the Gators received a commitment from RJ Moten. He's a safety DB linebacker prospect. I think Florida's recruiting him at just safety right now. From the University of Michigan. His father, Ron Moten, previously had played for the University of Florida as well. But RJ Moten is the first transfer portal player that the Gators get this year. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on RJ Moten?
I thought it was a good get. At a position of need, we spoke about possibly adding a safety into that room, a veteran safety. I like Miguel Mitchell. Kamari Wilson has some development still to do. So there's just a lot of inexperience back there. He comes in with 10 starts last year. I think he had something like 99 snaps. Very good as far as production. Haven't given up a touchdown in all of those snaps. Someone was saying that he lost his job maybe down the stretch at Michigan, but regardless, you get a guy that's coming in and is going to be penciled in as a starter. A lot of experience and coming from a good program with Harbaugh out there. So I don't think he's coming from a place where I'm worried about him being a toxic or ruining the locker room. So I like that we got him in. He didn't take a bunch of visits. You know, you get your guy in, he commits on the visit, and they shut it down. But I'm satisfied with that get for my safety room for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you needed it. He has more college snaps than everyone in the safety room combined. You needed depth. I think, like Silk said, he's a guy who can come in and start. He's some people took what I wrote wrong. I think he's a thumper. He can hit you hard. Had some tackling issues last year at Michigan. I think that's kind of what led to him losing his spot. It was also a playoff team. So we're talking about levels. Michigan was a much better team. He didn't lose his spot he probably lost his spot to someone who would also start at Florida.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, great point.
So, you know, I think you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but like this was one of the last four teams playing football games. He lost his spot to on a very good football team. Hasn't allowed a touchdown pass in coverage. So a guy who I think checks the box immediately for depth, experience, veteran leadership. You had to have that in that room. And two, a guy who I think is going to come in and compete right away to start August 31st.
Absolutely. Right on the same page there.
Always, man.
The Gators also hosted running back, from Houston, Alton McCaskill this weekend. I know a lot of folks are wondering why, with Florida having a pretty stacked running back room, why the Florida Gators are hosting a running back. My thoughts are, and then I want to hear yours. You have a team that needs talent, needs playmakers, and you have the opportunity for him to be at the program for the next 3 years. You always look at the opportunity, whether you are skilled in that room or not, to always try to find additional upgrades. But Silk, want to get your thoughts on Alton McCaskill.
Like you say, he had 3 years. He has 3 years to play, but he's talented wise. He's good enough to press, in my opinion, Montreal Johnson and Trevor Etienne for snaps. Cam Carroll came in from Tulane. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it all pans out. But he got 961 yards as a rookie out there in the AAC. Got rookie of the year in that league. Had an ACL tear in 2022, so he sat out. But seemingly bounced back with Holgerson and the Houston squad for spring. Had a solid spring. They actually were shocked that he entered the portal. So a very good get, man. I think you should be carrying 5 backs. It's an opportunity for good roster management. We missed on Mark Fletcher down the stretch. He went to Miami. So you feeling the need, a body. We wanted to bring in 2 backs last year. We only brought in 1. So obviously there was a missing spot on the roster. They fill him in if we get him, because I don't know if we get him. He's going to take some more visits, it seems here. But if you get him, you get a guy that fills in the roster need, but he's also proven. Especially if he's off of that tear, man. I love his film. Everything about it. You cut it on, whether it's Auburn, SEC programs, ACC, or in the league he's playing in, he got off as a true freshman. So I love his film, and I think he's going to be a guy that, if he does come, you could pencil Trayon Wellbeing for a red shirt.
Nick.
Yeah. It's that meme of the guy. It's like a trade. It's a guy with the slick back hair in the room that's kind of lit up, and it's like, Gator fans were like, I want quarterback, and it's like, you'll receive another running back. So I think that's where like the anger about it was, but dude can play, has 3 years to play, and you're going to lose Montrell. 90% most likely. I'd be surprised if Montrell Johnson's playing at Florida in 2 years. He's going to go to the draft after this year. You lose Cam Carroll. So I don't understand. And this is one of the kids, like Florida has tried to move in silence so much in the portal. They tell guys not to publicize when they're getting offered out of the portal. This kid tweeted when he got his offer, and people on our message board were like, you're wrong. This kid tweeted. I'm like, this kid's good enough to do whatever the hell he wants. Right. And Florida will still say yes and take you. So to me, everything's so said. Yeah, this kid can play right away. Give you another back for five really. And yeah, to me, if you can get him, absolutely. I thought Colorado bound as they've gotten like 50 new scholarship players.
Yeah, 59.
Deion's working like a drive-through. Just come on, the new guy in. But
just
I think
poaching FSU.
And right now, where the state of the roster is, if
Buffaloes is what they call it there.
Buffaloes, I like that.
Where the state of the roster is, I don't care what position is. If you can get talent, you need to get talent on this roster. Yesterday.
Yep, absolutely. And obviously, there's a limited amount of talent that's left. Again, the old adage has been talked about. There's a reason why a players, in the transfer portal, the amount of players that are going to upgrade Florida's roster are relatively limited. I know you could say that's tongue in cheek. Florida needs a lot of help. Obviously, Florida does, but you also have to factor in all of the other things, right? Can they transfer to Florida? What are they looking for? Where are they from? What opportunity are they looking for? And do they match and fit with what Florida's looking for? So getting a guy like McCaskill, I think, would be awesome. You get a talented running back in. Again, like you said, Silk, you're most likely losing 2 people next year, right? And that leaves Etienne, who, if he does what we think, would probably go to the NFL the year after that. You still could have another year of McCaskill, depending on, what his carries and reps look like. You have the opportunity for Tryon Webb. You have obviously the other recruits that are coming in. So Florida can get him. I completely understand the take and think that it would be a great get for the University of Florida.
And we'll see if NIL gets to a point where running backs are staying and it makes sense to stay, but the NFL doesn't value the running back position the way it used to. So you're trying to get to your second contract. I know we had a couple of running backs go in the first round this year, but like, I don't know. You have to be like a Bijan Robinson kind of running back to get that guaranteed 5-year contract in the first round. So to me, it makes no sense for running backs to stay for 4 years. If you're an NFL talent, it makes no sense to spend a 4th year in college and get that extra tread on your tires. You need to get to the NFL because it's not about your first contract, it's about your second. Maybe NIL gets you to a place where if you're like a fringe 4th, 5th rounder, but then if you're that, then are you making enough in NIL to hold off on the NFL? So you need, like Silk said, you need 5 guys. You need to always be recruiting running backs to have that backup, because it's really a position where if you're a dude, you're only going to spend 3 years in college.
Absolutely. On the other recruiting front, the Gators do lock in another commitment with 4-star wide receiver Isaiah Williams out of Carrollwood Day High School in Zephyr Hills, right outside of Tampa, Florida. He holds offers from Miami, LSU, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, South Carolina, Tennessee, Florida State, and the list goes on. Coming off of an injury last season, but is ranked 4 stars by On3 and Rivals, 3 stars by 247 and ESPN. The On3 overall average for him is the 297th best player in the country and 50th overall wide receiver in the country. Your thoughts on Isaiah Williams?
I like it. Good get. I think he plays in the slot, could play outside. He has NFL pedigree. Dad played in the NFL, tested at one of these camps. Man, which camp was it? Under Armour next camp. He ran a 4.46, which is the fastest time at that camp. So it looks like he's bounced back from the injury. I think if you look at his film, very explosive on special teams, punt return, kickoff return. Could use some work with just getting off the line of scrimmage versus jams on his release. But outside of that, man, a guy that can run, top end speed routes, intermediate routes, plucks the ball out of the sky. We're cooking in the Tampa area. That's what I think about this kid, man. We'll see if we can get TJ Moore.
What was the overall reaction? It seemed underwhelming on the timeline.
Yeah, I think everybody wanted JoJo Trader yesterday or the day the kid committed or something like. And do I think this kid's gonna rise? I think he was out of full season. I think when you see him as a full season, he's gonna have a Eugene Wilson-like rise in his rankings. I think he could be a top 200 kid, 150 kid. That's just my opinion. But you got to look at the offers. The kid that was out last year and it's just film. Like, he's an explosive guy, track guy. He runs a 10.9, 10.800 meter. People that are looking for like the big Jeremiah Smith and the JoJo Trader names, you got to build an entire wide receiver room. Are they still recruiting Jeremiah Smith? Obviously, we are. He set up a visit, so a great get by the staff, man. I think like the ceiling on this kid is through the roof.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I didn't know a bunch about him, pardon me, but film looks good, solid player. Again, Silk, like you said, you're building a room. You're not just recruiting one guy or just two guys. Not everybody's going to be a Jeremiah Smith. You need your other folks that are going to be on that roster. Looks like a good take. Florida's still in it for a lot of other players. I know Florida fans expect, because you have DJ Lagway, that you're just going to knock it out with 4 other 5-star wide receivers, and that's just not how it works. Carrollwood Day's a program that's produced a lot of athletes. Like you said, Silk, good pedigrees, 5'11 and a half, almost 6 feet, probably still growing. Has the opportunity to play slot or outside. It'll depend on what happens, going into this season, obviously. And, nobody's signed on the dotted line yet, right? If he doesn't recover the way that Florida wants, or doesn't look like it's going to be an opportunity at Florida's not going to sign him, right? But I do trust Billy Gonzalez. I do trust the analysis that they've done on these offensive players. I don't think that they've missed on a lot over the last year and a half or so on taking these guys that maybe are a little bit more under the radar. Perfect. And Silk, you mentioned Jeremiah Smith did lock in a visit for the Gators in the next few weeks. He will be here with DJ Lagway on June 2nd through June 4th.
And then they complain about that.
Right. That was actually be my next topic of conversation. Timeline doesn't ever seem to be happy. You get a guy to come onto campus.
I think
he's just trying to get a free trip. Guy doesn't come onto campus. These guys
it ain't your money. That ain't your money. Shut up. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Just being mad for the sake of being mad. That was one of the most wild takes. Can't keep giving this guy free food. Shut up. My goodness.
What are you talking about? I give him a voucher wherever he want to eat in Gainesville, man. If University of Florida runs out of money for Jeremiah Smith, just give me a call. I got an NIL.
Yeah. I'll Venmo some money over for a Dragonfly meal or a Mark's Prime or an Embers meal, right?
Yeah. But no, good setup, man. Good job by the staff. Right? They haven't landed him, but there's been continuing Jeremiah Smith flirting with University of Florida on timeline. He seemingly have a relationship with DJ Lagway. Beating out Brian Hartline isn't a walk in the park, but you got to be in it to win it. If he's scheduling official visits to come and hang out with DJ Lagway, let's do it. Our wide receiver room is going to be good with. As long as we got Billy Napier, he's gonna recruit studs in the wide receiver room. That's where he made his name. But meanwhile, you get the dogs on campus. See if we can get them.
Listen, this is what the last staff, in my opinion, didn't do. You're gonna lose some of these recruiting battles, but the last staff wasn't even taking swings. It was like, crap, he committed to Ohio State. That's cool. Who's the next one on the board? He likes Notre Dame. Who's 7th? Let's try 7 on our board. This staff doesn't care if you're committed somewhere else. If you're the number 1 player, we want you. We're going to continue to recruit you. So you're going to lose some of these battles. You're going to get trolled because you're going to lose some of these battles. But this staff is fighting for these kids. And you're going to eventually start winning some of these. And that's how you get back to having an elite team, is by getting elite talent. And you have to recruit against elite recruiters to get that to your campus.
Already.
All right. I do want to show Eugene Wilson just put out a video
Bro, get me more. Ooh, hello, Dan, with the muting, please.
Yeah, he think he me. Look at him. There we go.
Let me see if I can find this, Dan. I want to
Explosive.
see.
Look at that get up, man. It's release off the line is just it's crazy, bro. Super explosive kid, man. I want to I may have to walk back my Andy Jean being the best freshman year out of that. Even though Eugene didn't show up for spring, it's gonna be hard keeping him off the field, bro. It's gonna be difficult.
Let me drop this in here. I want to see how many.
Just tell him to go.
Silk a question. I think Eugene Wilson. If Ricky Pearsall had left, Eugene Wilson is a day one starter. Now I don't know if he is anymore with Ricky, but it is. It's bad news. Eugene Wilson enrolling is going to be bad news for Ty Jacquiel Bowman.
Who?
Ty Bowman. Jacquiel. I got my pronunciation guide, Silk, so I'm locked and loaded with my pronunciations.
I ain't even started trying to learn how to say his name because I knew Eugene was coming. Yeah, pause.
So hello.
Called it
that video I just dropped, Dan. I want to Silk. This reporter out there in Texas was catching or attempting to catch some passes, a little slant, little 5-yard ins from DJ Lagow. When Dan cues it up, Dan's towards the end of that video. How many passes? These are fastballs. How many out of 10 do you think you're pulling into the chest and turning upfield with?
We're almost there. Just wanted to get to the right spot in the video.
Yeah, bear with us. We don't have a production team or anything around here.
Yeah, it's just us, just doing our thing.
Yeah. Let me see.
Got the Airbnb Wi-Fi.
Got that Airbnb Wi-Fi.
That's a Colorado hamster.
All right,
got that Obama internet, bro.
How did the other one work just fine? All right, hold on. We're just playing. While that pulls up.
Man, me and Zach, when we were out there for the Texas A&M game, we were trying to go see him, but he had gotten hurt. Didn't end up not playing in that last game.
All right, it's coming up soon.
Is Derek Senior? Dude, he still looks young.
He is young, Nick. I think he's 16, 17 years old.
He was 16, man. That's crazy.
Look at Mike. As soon as it gets to that, there you go. Oh, drop one. Whoop, whoop. Does not look. Gets on you quick there, Silk.
Who's he throwing to?
It's the reporter, a TV news guy out there in Texas.
I was about to say his name is
How many? It's getting on you quick. How many of those you catching?
I played DB for a reason, so I'll be honest on the show. I didn't have the best hands. I could catch, but I didn't have the best hands, and I don't have the biggest hands. So I don't know, man. I might break a finger or something. You got to rock it.
I think I'm going to go for 3.
If you going 3, give me 9. If Dan can get 3,
I said 0 for 3. 0 for 3. So
I said 10. 10. You get 10.
Oh, out of 10. With all that short, like little slant where he's rocking.
Yeah. No, it's coming. It's getting.
It's coming in hot. I'll give myself 2.
I'm catching 7.
You are not catching 7, Nick.
7 with the gloves away from
the
body.
That is nuts.
Catching 7.
All right, cool. Next tailgate we have, you are running 10 routes.
You're gonna bring a mitt.
I'm catching. I got my old Ichiro Mizuno
catching after this thing, Nick, is win. That's all you're gonna be doing.
I'm catching 7. PJ DJ is putting it in stride, which is noticeably slower than
I think your pace will be a little off what he's used to.
Yeah. Well, it's a 7-step drop for my 5-yard slant.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's how we get the timing right.
Yeah. He's got to dodge some tackles too.
Yeah.
Step up in the box. Nick's still at yard 4. I get it.
My slant is a long read progression.
I do want to let the fans know that June 2nd weekend is a big weekend, but 2nd and the 9th, just for y'all, the casuals that don't follow recruiting like us maniacs, June 2nd should be a really big day. PJ DJ will be back in the town. We mentioned Jeremiah Smith. I don't have the entire list. It'll keep building, but that's just a date to keep in mind if you want to cut your notifications on for possible commits that weekend. That's the weekend you may want to.
Yeah, and I do want to say that I think Florida looks really, really, really good for Christopher Jones, linebacker out of Virginia.
Yes,
Just
sir.
you got to give Jay Bateman his credit where credit's due. He came in, didn't recruit super well right off the right out of the gate, but you saw some improvement from Ventrell Miller. Obviously, a huge improvement from Amari Gaynor. Now the Gators have one of the best linebacking commit groups in the country, if not the best right now.
Absolutely.
And looking at another highly ranked 4-star in Christopher Jones, you're talking about building for the future. And you got to give Jay Bateman credit where credit is due there. Gentlemen, any final thoughts on recruiting, topics related to the football team before we get into baseball?
No, that's it, man. I do got portal. No, Trey Amos is a guy that we're looking at. Former defensive back at Louisiana. Billy originally recruited him. He was a quarterback in high school, brought him in as a DB into that class out there in Louisiana. He has some crazy interest right now. He visited LSU, also visited Alabama. We were one of the first teams to offer when he entered the portal. I know our defensive back room isn't one. We need a lot of people. There's not a big need for cornerbacks right now. But if Bama and LSU want him to come in and play, that's a guy that you should go out there. We're seemingly trying to get him on campus. We'll see where we go with it, but I would love him in my DB room for sure, for sure. He's a 6'2" guy, very rangy, good athlete. He's going to play on Sundays a lot. So I would love to get him into Gainesville if we can.
Absolutely. Nick, we didn't talk about baseball last week. Had a couple people in the comments ask, so we apologize. But Nick, where are we at with baseball? Tough week for the Gators.
Yeah, tough week for Florida. Had a really big opportunity. South Carolina gets swept. Vandy gets swept. So Florida had a chance to to gain some ground on Vanderbilt. They don't get it done. I will say that Texas A&M was one of the teams in the College World Series last year. Really good team. They lost their two best hitters from that team, and they've had some bad luck. But after they lost Friday, talking to my buddy Ryan Broninger, he said, this team, Texas A&M, needs to win 5 of their last 9 to have a chance of making it to the NCAA tournament. So you're talking about one of the best 8 teams in the country possibly missing the tournament. I think A&M played like a team desperate to win, like a team that had their back against the wall. Winning SEC series is tough on the road. Florida's 6-2 in SEC series this year. It sets up a huge top 10 matchup for Vanderbilt and Florida this week. If Florida can sweep, they'll take the lead in the SEC East, and I think they'll be only behind Arkansas and LSU, depending on what those two teams do before they finish the season at Kentucky. But it's a huge weekend for the Gators this week, and I think you found some answers at the back end of the bullpen. That's going to be a tight rotation of 4 guys with Ryan Slater, Brandon Neely, and Philip Abner at the back end of the bullpen. So yeah, I'm pumped. Whenever the baseball schedule comes out, you kind of look for when Florida and Vanderbilt play. So this is going to be a big weekend, and the last home weekend. So we'll get Senior Day. I literally just realized that we get Senior Day this weekend. Had no idea.
Awesome stuff there, Nick. We will look forward to
Senior Day. This season flew by.
Yeah.
Christ.
Fired Sully 3 or 4 times.
Annually.
Yeah. Monthly. Once a month annually.
Gotta get him on the show.
Gotta get him on the show before he's fired.
Do want to give a quick shout out before we head out. I think I have Song of the Week this week. That's kind of fun. I just thought about that. I want to give a congratulations to the women's lacrosse program that won the 2023 American Athletic Conference tournament. That is, I believe, I think that's their 9th time winning. So congratulations to them. They have now extended their streak to 12 consecutive NCAA tournaments, and they will be the number 6 overall seed, where they'll face Jacksonville University. I'm sure their fan base and student athletes are going to enjoy being able to get out of the city at 4 p.m. on Friday at Donald R. Disney Stadium, where if you catch that game, you can also watch the Notre Dame Mercer game right after, and the winner of those 2 games will face off Sunday in Gainesville, Florida. Gentlemen, any final thoughts? I know there's some questions about O-line recruits. I think some things are starting to get a little clearer over the next few weeks. I know Florida is looking and visiting a number of prospects right now, both those names that you've heard of and those that you maybe haven't. Give us a couple weeks, let the dust settle a little bit on where things are at. I think Florida, based on some things that I've heard and talking to some folks last Wednesday, Florida feels a little bit more confident than maybe we do on some of these offensive line commits, but I know that it's a big question mark, so we'll try to get some answers for you in the next few weeks. If you're still listening, we appreciate everybody that still is. Please hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Please throw a comment in there. I'm out here in Denver for a country music show on Tuesday. Shane Smith and the Saints. It's their first time ever playing Red Rock, so I had to come out here. As you boys know, I fly back on Wednesday in 2 weeks to the day. I'm flying back out here for another show. So we're going to play Shane Smith. They have a song called Fire in the Ocean. That's a banger. Silk, make sure you listen to it, and we'll see you guys at the same corner and same time next week.
Already. Same corner, same.